G'day, good people. Welcome to the Grow Your Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery. Here's what's coming up inside of this episode. Let's kick into gear with some recruitment tactics.
There are some incredible career pages out there that have really amazing videos on them. People are knocking on their doors to work there.
So it's a really short job ad on Seek and then a video.
Yes, you might think it's annoying posting every day and that people will think that you're desperate.
Tell them, show them, involve them.
Yeah, I emailed them and said they'd been successful, but I haven't heard back. I'm like, get them on the phone, on Zoom.
What we're showing is the recruitment ecosystem. So it's a paradigm that we've come up with to help you think through your recruitment strategy. This episode will be right up your alley if you're looking to recruit therapists and you're short on time or applicants. Stick around for when we talk about how a property investment prospectus changed our entire recruitment strategy. Plus, you'll want to hear Hannah's take on framing career progressions from the very first interview. Before we dive in, today's episode is brought to you by allieclinics.com. If you're the kind of clinic owner who loves to feel organized and stay ahead of the chaos, you'll love Allie. Think of it as your digital clone. It's the single source of truth for all your clinic's policies, systems, and training. Test it for free at allieclinics.com. And in other news, applications are now open to work with us one-on-one at Clinic Mastery. If you want support to grow your clinic and bring your vision to life, just email hello@clinicmastery.com with the subject line podcast and we'll line up a time to chat. All right, let's get into the episode. Well, that was an anticlimax. Yeah. Jack O'Brien's not here, and in the vein of leveling up the podcast, I thought, well, I better come dressed, prepared for it. He wore a blazer last time, said, the podcast is serious. I got to level up. So, well, I figured bow tie, had to fetch this out of the depths of my cupboard.
Yes,
anyway,
looking sharp.
Looking sharp. All dressed up and nowhere to go, as the saying is.
Wow, I hope this is how you and Jack show up every week for me.
Oh, gee. Well, good to be back in the studio. We might as well get straight into it.
Yes.
Recruitment. This came up a lot in Palm Cove, where we just had our member retreat and our team retreat. Such a key thing for clinic owners looking to grow is to get more of the right people on the bus, part of the team. Yes. And I hear a lot of people say recruitment's hard, it's challenging, it's competitive. We've seen a few shifts and changes recently with where the power balance lies. I remember like 2-3 years ago, new grads coming out being like, I want 120 grand. And you're like, hold up. You still got to prove yourself. So let's kick into gear with some recruitment tactics, strategies that you find are particularly useful for someone who's in desperate need of finding someone on the team. Where do you go to in defining a recruitment strategy? Yeah,
absolutely. I think the best places to go when you're really desperate in the moment is to also ground yourself and think, I just can't recruit anyone, because we know the detrimental effect that can have when you move forward with someone who isn't the right fit and you find yourself back in this position only worse because now you've got clients that you've got holding on for appointments. LinkedIn is quite a good place to build your reputation and build some connections, but it's not a today strategy. It's I was talking to some members about this at the retreat as well, that it is the long game. So just building those connections so that when someone is thinking about leaving their current role, that you come to mind and that they might reach out to you. I think going to your team is your number one spot to be able to go. The connections that your team have to other professionals is incredible. And then I like to think of some companies that I know have quite high turnover rates of their teams and reach out on LinkedIn to those ones, but a more targeted approach in searching those companies and seeing who's working there and seeing if we can entice them over. And I think for all our industries, there are companies that we hear, that things haven't gone well or they're not getting the support that they would like. And a lot of the coaches talk about just being persistent on social media too. Like, you might think it's annoying posting every day and that people will think that you're desperate, but I think just getting that message out there consistently is an incredible way to try and get some traction.
So, how do you open up the conversation on LinkedIn when you reach out to those people that are at other clinics or you may know they're
Yes.
looking for a job? Just talk us through your approach. How do you handle the DMs on LinkedIn as part of the
Yeah.
recruitment strategy?
I think a lot of people are sick of hearing from recruiters in their LinkedIn DMs. And so I think you're already head of the pack if you're the director or the team leader or whatever your role is within the organization that you're reaching out for, as long as you're not the recruiter. Um, and I think that also has that personal touch. I personally generally start off softly just by saying, like, hey, LinkedIn suggested that we make a connection. And if you've got one of those messages from me, it may not have been true. I may have stalked you first, but I like to just sort of say, oh, I just sort of came across, like, it was suggested that we had this in common. I'll try and find a connection. I'll often say, like, I just love connecting with local OTs. And so I just wanted to make that connection. And then they'll write something back often, and then that can start a conversation. If I'm really, time precious and thinking we really need someone now, I'm a little bit firmer in saying, like, hey, I noticed that you've been at X position for 3 years now. I imagine that things are going well, but given you're a local OT, I was wondering if you'd know any other OTs who you'd be able to share this ad with. You're always welcome to apply, but to me, it looks like you're pretty settled in your current role. And so just sort of not really saying to them, hey, we've got a role, do you want it?
Yes.
Trying to see what other words and using our friend ChatGPT to see what other ways you can word messages like that.
That's a really nice way. We've heard so many people use that approach or a version of, and then
Mm,
they go, actually, no, I do want to apply, or I'm going to check this out. It kind of creates that
yeah.
curiosity, that intrigue for people to
Mm,
follow up. So I really like that. Another one that I've really liked to use over time is a video in the DM. Have you ever
yes.
tried that or any voice notes? I found just to add that personal touch because so many times people can feel like, oh, it's someone acting on behalf of you, a virtual assistant,
Yes.
another team member. So I found it useful to just show my face and 30 seconds of sound bites, if you would, to make the connection. Have you ever done that? Have you found it useful? What's been your experience of using video in the DM to make that initial connection?
Yeah, I haven't used video or voice memo in the DM, but we have used video in our Seek ad instead. And so instead of any text, we've tried a few different versions. We've tried the whole job ad like you would normally see for anyone with a video attached. We've tried just a couple of dot points with the video attached, and then we've tried no text at all other than to say click the video to see more, and then just having the video. And we find when we do the click to see the video or just a few dot points and the video that they get the best reactions and responses. And then the feedback from those interviews is the reason I wanted to apply is because every other job ad looked exactly the same and yours looked different. And so I just wanted to find out more about it. And so that's been really successful.
So a couple of bullet points and then a
Yeah.
video. So it's a really short job ad on Seek
Yes.
and then a video.
Yes, and it's time stamped so that they know, like, there's something in there to say, like, we're currently looking for, two OTs across these two different sites. We're looking to interview on these dates. So they know that that video was created for that ad
Now
rather
you're
than
going
it
to have
just
to change your
stamped.
strategy as everyone listening tries a version of this. That
Yes.
is so often the game, right? Of like just trying different things, seeing what works, being nimble with it. What else have you found useful when it comes to the job ad side of things? Because naturally, I think this is where most clinic owners start is like, I'm going to
Mm,
out wordsmith the next person and try and make our job sound
yeah.
even better and get that candidate. And so often that's actually kind of where it stops. And we'll talk about more of the strategies in just a moment. But
Mm.
when it comes specifically to the job ad, which everyone needs to start there, what are some other things that you found really useful over time and maybe even currently?
Yes. I think answering the questions that you think are those sticky questions that you don't want to answer in interviews, which I think are what's the pay and what are the KPIs? And so if we can answer those questions in the video, then we already know the candidates applying are already on the same page as us. What we don't want to do is waste our time with candidates who are like, nah, I'm not willing to work for that amount. And, and And that's okay too. Like we all have
Yes.
different goals at different points in our career. Sometimes our goal is to be in a really well supported team and get the professional development and get the career progression. Other time our goal is like, I just want to pay down my mortgage. I don't care what I do as long as I just get paid the highest dollar. Neither is wrong. It's just like some might be right for where your company is and some might be right for where another company is. And so, yeah, naming those things straight up. I don't know if you talk to business
Mm.
owners who find that when they put adds up. Seek always says like they get more applicants if you put the number there.
Put the number there. It's a
I don't
great
know.
point. Maybe there was a season where we wouldn't. You kind of want people, good people, to come in and inquire and maybe choose us based off of what they see and hear, the values of the clinic, the type of care that we provide. But I like your point of putting that out there and also using a bit of a range as well. I think gives maybe people with the curiosity, the chutzpah to like ask for, can we go on the upper end of this? Or it invites the conversation. In short, I found just testing different things. Like you might
Mm,
start with that there and then change it or hide it or vice versa on different things. So it's seasonally adjusted. That's
yeah.
probably what I'd say. What I love, and Marcio mentioned this to me a while back, in the light of bring things to the front of the conversation, the front of the team member journey, and it helps you so often, throughout their years of tenure. And that is, he talked about we're a team, we're a culture that is quickly adjusting and adapting to new things, whether it's a new
Mm,
tech or software or system, we're always getting better. And he'll use that in the first or second interview with a new team member just to make sure that, hey, 3 to 6 to 9 months down the track, when you're like, oh, there's so much change, I haven't got on top of this stuff, there's a way for us to anchor back to that conversation, or it
mhm,
doesn't happen at all because we've screened that out at the very beginning. So, when you talk about putting the KPIs at the
mm,
front, that kind of just connects for me as what are we having troubles with in our team today? Or have we had troubles with that? Perhaps if we'd been more deliberate in screening for it or having the just open, honest conversation at the start, could we have avoided some of these headaches,
mm.
down the line? So that's kind of the point that I take from you around having the KPI stuff. How do
Yes.
you talk about that in a way? How do you talk about KPIs in the job ad
Yes.
in a way that doesn't scare them off?
Yes. So for us, we have a range of what a KPI might look like or an impact hour might look like. And so we just talk to the fact that if people aren't talking about it and saying that, if they say like, oh, KPIs don't matter, it's just whatever you can do that we'll work around, then that's just not being honest with you and not being true. Because if you said, okay, no worries, I'll see one or two a day, there's no way that a company would be able to remain profitable and sustainable if
Yes.
that was the case. So I use that sort of angle to say, and so in that light, I want to be transparent that, for our new grads, we do start at around 20 impact hours and that builds up as you become more experienced to 25. And, there are opportunities to go beyond that, but it'll depend on your level of expertise and we can talk more in depth in the interview. And
Yeah.
so it just sort of gives a bit of a range.
Yeah, great. I think, in the recruitment ecosystem, we use a couple of little like mental models for making decisions.
Mm,
And one of them is tell them, show them, involve them. Because
yes.
everyone does the tell them part pretty well. And now with ChatGPT, you can sound really amazing. And typically that is the job ad or the careers page on the website. It's the written word, the copy so often that crushes it. But then to your point, like people say, oh, they all kind of sounded the same. They all offered mentoring support and our culture's amazing, which it may be. But how can you substantiate that, which is where show them comes in?
Yeah.
Can it be a video? Can it be a document? Um,
Mm,
can there be something where they see it in action?
mm,
Um, the involve them part of it is can they actually experience it? digitally, virtually, or in person. An example of that would be, can I shadow you? Can I observe you? Can I come in for one of your mentoring sessions physically or digitally via Zoom? So tell them, show them, involve them, just enriches that experience. They kind of feel like they understand exactly what it is. Some of those are able to be pulled off in that, 4 to 6 to 8 week window where you're recruiting, but so often these are part of the longer play, the longer journey of attracting more quality humans to your team.
Yes. I was just having a look at my YouTube list. Yeah, they're like 5 minute videos that we put up, and they do like I record myself talking to camera and then I separate the audio from it. And then sometimes it's me talking to camera, and other times you can see footage from our retreat days, from therapists working in the clinic, from a screenshot of our Instagram page. And we encourage them with the show you. We always reference back to our Instagram page and say, go and have a look there.
So good.
There's a point that you touched on about career pages that we sort of just skipped past, but there are some incredible career pages out there that have really amazing videos on them where people are knocking on their doors to work there. And so having videos, testimonials from your team around what it is and why they love working there is an incredible way to show them as well.
It's a great point. What my mind went to was your recruitment budget. So often, like, people wouldn't even have a recruitment budget. It's like, oh, when I need, I'll pay for the ad on Seek so often, or Indeed, or wherever it may be, and then we'll go from there. But when you invest in like pictures and videos, let's say you spend 5 grand to 10 grand on a quality photographer, videographer to come in and capture those things, like, how long are you going to juice those assets? Like, you'd have
Yeah,
them for
absolutely.
years, right?
Yes.
Well, like, we just updated our photos internally at CM and at the Palm Cove retreat. I was like, gee, we've had those other photos for 6 years now. I can't really tell. Maybe others would be like, yeah, they're dated. But you're spending on it, and you're getting it for many years to come. It's such a worthy investment to do so. We actually did a spreadsheet, an asset where we looked at a whole bunch of career pages, join our team pages, not only in healthcare, but some other fields as well, like KPMG was one that came to mind, possibly like, Nike and Lululemon, just to see what like big brands are doing. And maybe you don't have the resources of them, but there's so much that you can emulate from those pages that make you stand out. What are some of the things that you've seen from people around there join our team pages
Yes.
that have been
The
effective?
pathways. Yeah,
Pathways,
the
like career
pathways.
pathways.
Yeah. And I think we all have career pathways in some form or another, but do we write them down? Do we have them on Canva images? Is it easy to show them what that looks like, how long it might take to get there? I think that really, they're the things that I hear the feedback around. And also, even from the moment that you offer the job, like, what is it that you're doing that is different to everyone else? For example, are you jumping on, are you giving them a call? Or sometimes people say, yeah, I emailed them and said they'd been successful, but I haven't heard back. I'm like, get them on the phone, get them on Zoom. We get them on Zoom. And so it's that
When you're on,
opportunity.
so you get them on Zoom when you're offering
Yeah.
the role to them. Like, you're the
Yes.
successful candidate.
Yes. So we set them up. If I think that they're going to be the successful candidate in the
Yes.
interview, I'll say to them, "Oh, can we just set up a second time to catch up? It's an opportunity for you to ask questions and for us just to check back. I also will let you know whether you've been successful or not in that time. And if you've been successful, it's great. It's an opportunity for us to run through the offer. If you haven't been successful, it's an opportunity to seek feedback." And
Yes.
like occasionally it is that we then interview a second person and we think, like a fourth person maybe, and we think, no, wait, we want to go with this one, not that one, and we've set up that time. And it is an opportunity to give feedback or to be asked about feedback, because there's nothing worse than going for a job interview and thinking, I never even heard back about whether I was successful. I assume I'm not because I haven't heard. But they may be your future employee. Like, it might just be that this time someone was more skilled, but that they still would have been a good fit. And
Yes.
so you want to make sure you're leaving that well.
It's a really great point about the regularity and frequency of communication during that
Mm.
phase. Like you're really trying to land the deal, seal the deal.
Yes.
You want to be in frequent communication, right, with folks. I'm going to share my screen here for those that are watching us on YouTube. You're able to see this super easy. If you're listening in, come over to YouTube, check it out. We've got heaps of videos every single week. All right. This what we're showing is the recruitment ecosystem. So it's a paradigm that we've come up with to help you think through your recruitment strategy and be very deliberate about each stage of a new team member's journey. And it doesn't just start at the application process, but
Mm.
well prior to it. So to just talk through this, we use some concentric circles. And if we start on the very outside, we start with awareness, the fact that people become aware that you even exist, that your clinic is a potential option in their career pathway is so important. So we can talk to different strategies that build that awareness over time. We'll come back to that in a moment, Hannah. Then interest. They may be aware of you, but they need to have some interest in working with you and for you. What are some of the things that you might do to spark that interest in the potential for a career pathway at your clinic? Then is evaluation. This is the sort of the typical part of the recruitment process where a job ad is put out, there is an opportunity. Ideally, they come knocking on the door, like you mentioned, Hannah, but
Yes.
this is so often they're reacting or responding to a job ad that's been put out or a sneaky little DM in their LinkedIn. Uh, and then consideration is where perhaps they've got a few options on the table and they're considering, is it you or is it the other person that I want, and what do I really want out of my role? And then enrollment is they enroll into your team. So this is the recruitment ecosystem. To clarify, there are different measures that you could put in place to figure out how well you're doing in each of these areas so that we're building something robust over many years to come rather than just relying on a job ad when we need it. And there are different strategies that you could use at each one of these stages to funnel in more people that are ideal candidates for working with you. So this is the snapshot. I've just changed my screen to give a little bit more specifics here for those watching in. But Hannah, let's start with awareness. You spoke to a couple of those things like the LinkedIn DM.
Yes.
What else? Let's just start the awareness stage. What have you seen or what have you used to create more awareness that DOTS is a clinic that's worth working with or for the clinics that you're coaching to put them in a similar spot?
Um, our pens. Just I was giving out pens left, right, and
You
center
just
at the
mail out
retreat.
pens to
Yeah,
all the OTs that
all
are
the candidates.
graduating.
I do. There are some small things that I do, and I know everyone doesn't have this opportunity that I am in at a university. And so, whenever I do have students, we do give them pens whenever we meet a student. But also on the back of my laptop, I've got Hannah. OT for children, and my car is branded. And so
Oh, yeah.
that creates conversation. And I know they're things that not everyone wants to do or has, but it just increases the awareness that we are a company that exists. And it's actually quite surprising how many people do know our brand because of those small things.
Yes.
Um, and I think also responding to posts on Facebook forums and using your logo as your image or just getting your presence better known. There are some people who've created Facebook groups and they run those Facebook groups or they offer some free information sessions. Now's a good time to be getting in the forefront of being known as an expert in the NDIS space, or maybe you're an expert in a different area. Maybe it's TAC or a different area, not even funding. Maybe it's, I don't know, adults with a certain diagnostic group. And so linking in with those areas that like footy clubs that lots of people are in or sponsorships where people are going to see your logos.
Yes. Yeah, it's a really great point. The principle that we put here is that you are always hiring.
Yes.
And the key is that you've defined clearly the type of person that you want to attract and that you find ways to show up on their radar that you exist. So I love a number of those placements being one, or you're working at the uni, so you've got great proximity to the next generation of talent through the university. Forums like Facebook groups, as you mentioned, there being a contributor, having your own. I've seen a number of people. Mick Risk is
Yes.
one of those with the iMove group that is now called something else, but he gets out there and shares his thoughts that so often attract the next generation. There's a version of mentoring. I've seen people start their own podcasts,
Yes.
courses, workshops that they may have,
Mm.
and using even some ads and downloads, whether it's Facebook ads, as an example, to go to a download that is the 5 things I wish I knew when I started my OT career or physio
Mm.
career, or how to negotiate a salary. It's quite an interesting thing when you are putting out content like that that might otherwise be an uncomfortable conversation. But to your point, you're leading with that because you want people to be educated and informed about how to have those conversations thoughtfully. So there are a number of like key things to be able to do.
Mm.
Then we go to interest, which is about sort of capturing those connections and starting
Mm.
conversations. So this definitely leads into the LinkedIn side of things, or maybe in a practical marketing sense, we have here build a database.
Mhm.
So it could just be a spreadsheet, could be a document. It doesn't have to be overly sophisticated, but you want to build a database of names and emails and phone numbers and even special interests here. So when it comes to strategies that you've used or you've seen
Mm.
used for this stage of the recruitment ecosystem to create interest, what are some things that come to mind?
Yeah, I think a lot of people also don't know that on Seek you can go back and have a look at all your previous candidates. And so that is a good place to start if you haven't been tracking who they are. Um,
Great.
and
And
so,
like literally to get their email or phone number and then
yes.
follow them up and send them a message.
Yes, and they also have the updates of when, and it might be to do with your membership that you've signed up to Seek.
Yes.
I'm not sure, but you can see who's recently updated their profile, and it's easy to just send them that job ad straight away. But what the next level up to that is to hunt them down on LinkedIn and just send them those messages and. They're looking, but it hasn't just come through this email chain. Um, yeah, I think they are really interesting. Also, there's a lot of Facebook groups that are like OT jobs available. And so if you see someone else posting a job out and you see someone commenting on that, maybe they're someone worth connecting with and getting in front of as well.
Yes. Yep. It's a great point. I think that the key thing here is that you have their details and you're able to be in conversation with them, whether it's LinkedIn or email or text, whatever it may be, it's about more conversation. So I
Mm.
think this is a key part for clinic owners is if they audit their week or their month, it's like, how am I continuing to nurture, this prospective cohort of
Mm.
future team members to the degree that it matters. And of course, some of these things are easier and harder to pull off depending on your time or your money or where you're located. Like for really outback clinics versus CBD clinics, it's a different story as well. So I
Mm.
think as you're listening into this, just think, how could it work for me? How could I try this? So much of this is testing and
Mm.
figuring out whether it works for you or not. There's no silver bullets here.
And I think for those rural and remote places, the things that we've heard have worked really well are having students when it's been a possibility, doing even zooming in sessions where people can zoom and have a look at a session, or because placements can be so short, and also running online programs for first years, second year, third years, fourth years, and even year 10 students, linking in with schools and being able to go into schools and do a talk on the best reasons you need to choose the appropriate runners or what is our sensory system and how to understand it. And so, yeah, I think they're the area that just even getting excited about the careers that they might not even know about.
So good, which kind of blends us into the next step, evaluation, where they become a prospective team member. Now, sidebar, one of my favorite shows on Netflix is called Chef's Table. Uh, Without boring you with too much of the details, when I was going through school, I wanted to be a chef. One of my heroes, inspirations, was Jamie Oliver. I mentioned this at Palm Cove. I got laughed down, like, you can't cook, you can barely do toast. No, I loved it. And you and I both did cooking in year 12, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Which was super fantastic. Anyway, not that you want to hear my life story, but on Chef's Table, it's like cinematic quality. They interview typically Michelin star chefs, and the amount of chefs there that are in outback, rural, remote locations around the world and are able to attract the best talent from the CBD to come and work for them is incredible and inspiring. So I actually, love learning from different industries and being able to say, well, how could we apply a model like that to what we do here in healthcare? So for those that do find it challenging to recruit, I'd suggest you think different. You take inspiration from some of these places. If nothing else, watch Chef's Table. It's a great watch. So let's go to evaluation. Be their trusted advisor. The idea here is that therapists are making decisions now and will continue to do over time about their career. Hopefully, it's not that they're leaving the profession because they're burnt out or sick of it, though that happens. They're thinking about proximity of their home to their work. They're thinking about how much can I earn? What are the career progressions? They have all these questions. So how can you support them in thinking through these and making decisions? So let's go down this path here, Hannah, of evaluation to be their trusted advisor. Some of the strategies that you've used or seen used that do this particularly well.
I think even when people reach out about questions about jobs, I think one thing we like to do is just be really open and transparent about whether people are calling to ask us about a job, whether they're calling other places and to say, hey, like both sound like great places to work. This is what we offer. This is, what they may offer. We'd recommend you ask them these questions. We'll often talk to them about the fact that it's okay if they don't choose to work with us if we give them an offer. We just want to make sure that they're being well supported in their career and that we're always here if they want to come back. I think what you spoke about before, being on podcasts and answering questions, being seen in the community as an expert and a leader and someone who is approachable. We don't want to spend all our time answering LinkedIn questions by second year OTs, but finding a space where you can be seen and they can go back to those questions as well.
It's a great point. I saw a few folks in Palm Cove at the member retreat having recruitment as their focus. And they were looking at they had like a list of maybe the top 10 questions that a young therapist might have about the profession. And they were going to create a number of assets, videos and downloads, content that they could share with the profession. Not everyone's going to be a potential candidate, but to that brand awareness piece, like you help one and they share it with a friend, and we start to build this awareness that, I might not work here for various reasons, but they seem like a really great place to work. Like they're always helping out. That's really, really neat. So that's a really practical thing. What are the top 10 to 20 questions that someone might have about working with you or working in the profession in general? And then how could you go about answering those?
Yeah, absolutely. And people spoke about, blog posts and all those sorts of things. And
Yes.
just changing that up to be a video sometimes is so helpful, as you were saying, like just getting your face out there rather than just a written blog piece is
Yes.
really valuable. And I know people are hesitant to go on camera, but we all hate it really, and we all just pretend it's another fake it till you make it moment. So I just encourage you to get in front of the camera.
How did you get through it? You're obviously a doer, but if you go back, what were some of the things
Absolutely.
practically that you found helpful to, make that transition where now you're more willing to do it, even if you don't love it. You're more willing to do it.
Um, Being on camera.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I worked at a company called Epic, which was an early intervention service, and I had a director there who made us record our clinic sessions, and then we would show the team, and then the team would give us what we did well and what we could do better. And I was like 3 years out or something at this stage, and I was so anxious about it, but just seeing other people do it and the amount of support that was provided to get through that. I think after that, anything seemed easy, but that was such a valuable learning exercise. And yeah, I think it's just about the repetition and practicing and watching yourself back and thinking, and I know we all hate watching ourselves back,
Cringeworthy.
cringeworthy, but I think just that practice, repetition,
Yeah.
and just realizing that no one thinks about you as much as you think about yourself. Like, no one cares.
Great advice.
And yeah.
Great
What about
advice.
you? Do you just love it? Love dressing up, getting a suit on?
No. I remember being incredibly anxious. And I didn't realize this until many years later, to the point where I'd avoid it.
Mm,
Yeah, I really struggled with it. And perhaps a number of those things were not feeling clear on what I was going to say. And
yes.
so what helped me practically was rather than just turning on the video and trying to wing it, just having a couple of bullet points that I knew I could anchor back to. And also just trying to say it as briefly and succinctly as possible, which is hard for me because I'm a slow talker and it's very tricky. So those things help. The repetition as well is getting through that discomfort. And I think if you can quickly move to making it a habit,
Mm,
like you said, you're like, I did that 3 months ago, but I've done 50 things in between now and then. So that's a distant memory versus I
mm,
did it 3 months ago. I've done nothing since. And so all I'm thinking about is that last version. So the
yes.
repetition's like super valuable. And
Yes.
talking on something that you feel relatively confident in, competent in, I think is a great win to begin
Yeah.
with. Um,
And there's that example of the pottery classes where they got student, do you know this one?
I
Um,
don't watch pottery content.
yeah. Where they got students to make as many vases as they could, and they got the other group of students to do one vase and make it as perfect as they could. And so their expectation was that the team that had one pot to work on were going to end up with the better product, but actually they found that the students who had the repetition in actually ended up with a better product in the end. So it's about, as you said, getting those reps in.
Love it. I do remember
Mm,
that. The
yes.
pottery through me off.
Yeah.
So
Might be a different example. I might be butchering it, but it's okay. We'll be confident in what we say.
exactly.
Yeah.
Consideration. We're now moving on to they are a
Yes.
candidate for the role. The role. They have applied for the role. Perhaps they're in the interview process.
Mm,
This is where we're actively going through exploring this. So the principle here that we use is sell them a career, not a year. So often, like the job is packaged, this is what you're going to earn, and it's per annum. So it's like this year, and here are the inclusions. They're not future pacing. Well, here's year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. Here's what it could look like, to your point about pathways. So, talk me through strategy wise, how do you do this consideration phase?
yes. And after we've finished this, I'm happy to share my screen and show you the pathways that I spoke about before, which
Should
helps
we
us.
do it now?
Yeah, we can do it now.
All right, I'll stop share.
Steal your screen.
Let's
Um,
go for it.
So we talk about that potentially they might come in as a new graduate or a recent graduate. Maybe they're coming in at an OT level, maybe a senior OT. So it's a Canva image that has the dots going up one side and then senior OT at the top, and then coming down the other side being our stream leaders, team leaders, and then a senior team leader. And the arrows just show that as they become more experienced on the team or more experienced in their clinical work, that we increase the percentage area versus general. So we talk about new graduate OTs being really a generalist when they start with us. And then when they're a senior OT, it may be that you want to specialize 50% of your caseload in children under the age of 2 who have had NICU before they came in, so really specialist area. And then as we come down this other side, we're reducing the clinical caseload and increasing projects and supervision or mentoring now of other team members. So there's more opportunity for it to be less all day clinical work and more opportunities for some of that project work. So that really helps paint that picture of those progressions.
And at what point are you distributing this, making this accessible to the team? What have you found
Yeah.
work?
In the interview, we're showing them that so that we've got that scope. And then in regards to painting the picture of what the dollar amounts will be, is that we talk about it in the interview. We're not looking at any visuals because I think that the rewards program that we use, it's actually a Clinic Mastery rewards program, is a little bit complicated sometimes when you like it's a lot of information to take on in an interview if you have never done a rewards program before. So we'll talk a little bit about the rewards program, but it's when we do the job offer, which is why we need to be on Zoom so that we can use some visuals around what does that job offer actually look like and what does that reward actually look like. And then this image is included in that document. It's a slideshow, and then we download that and send it off to them. We call it the next step is yes. And so at the end of the document, I'll say like, Steph, are you going to connect your future with dots? And they'll say, like, I just want to know where they're at that point. And so sometimes I'll say, absolutely, I'm in. And other times I'll say, yeah, I just need to digest those numbers and then I'll get back to you.
It's a really great point around framing up their career progression. I have a slide a little bit further down here as well. This has got our old branding on it. I think this was from 2 years ago or thereabouts, where we have essentially like coordinates on a map, some GPS points of now and then. Then can be sort of 3 to 5 years down the track. And a couple of things for the now, we say, what's important to you when making this decision about where you'll work, especially if there's a few on the cards that they're entertaining. When seeking advice about important decisions, who do you speak with? Tell me about how they've guided you or how you want them to guide you. It's like my spouse, my parents, my friends. It's useful to get some of that context. What excites you about joining the DOTS team? What's worked previously in another workplace that you've really loved, and what's not worked? What are you hoping might be different here? These just help with some of that context, because then essentially when we want to pitch them back the opportunity to work here, we want to take some of those insights, write them down, make sure they feel heard and seen. And then on the career side, we look at, what is your ideal day, ideal week, ideal client, ideal income, some pathways that you would like to pursue or contemplate. Don't want to be boxed in, they're feeling like, well, this is the first date. I don't want to commit to anything. It's not in concrete, but what are some things that, ignite your curiosity or you're interested in exploring more? We have a clinic champion here as another bullet point, which is if you've got someone on your team that is just a raving fan, they've been with you for a while, potentially they play a role in that interview process by having a conversation or by being there, right? Their desire statement, which is a little bit of, what does their future life look like? And then we've got here packaged to mirror the above answers, including some of their language, which then I might have like a really quick fly through this. Here it is. Maybe is this similar to what you've got, Hannah? What we're showing
Absolutely.
is essentially, what is this, 8 to 12 pages of a slide deck that is grabbing all that information, packaging it up, and then you either print it or deliver it digitally. It feels like this really personalized proposal to work at the clinic. And it comes with, as you said, next step is yes.
Yeah,
People are blown away when they get this, right?
absolutely.
And it sort of came from this idea of they're investing their time, they're investing their career in you. If you made any other investment into a property, I don't know, into shares, into something else, you would have some version of an investment prospectus. And so we sort of modeled that principle and concept and said, well, that would be pretty important for team members because it's incredibly competitive. Let's create an investment prospectus for a prospective team member. Talk to me about some of the experiences that you've had in presenting a document like this to candidates. What reactions have you had?
Absolutely. All of those things you spoke to, like, whoa, I've never had anyone do this for me before. Like, this is incredible. This is so clear. You must have all your policies and procedures like so clear if you start off this way. And back to your point about like asking them who their prospective people are that they chat to, they'll say like, my mum loved it. And like if they're coming back after we've shared it with them. So it's important that they can then show those people that they want to, their trusted advisors, what you're actually offering them. There's never anyone coming back saying, hey, can you just remind me about what we said about X, Y, and Z? Because it's all there. And you touched on that point about what's your expectation, like what's your ideal wage? And I think people veer away from that conversation because what if they say 110,000? Yeah, well, if they do, then you know that they're not the right fit if you've got a new graduate job going. So the way that we phrase this question, or I phrase it, is this can be a tricky question to answer. I just wanted to get an indication of your current pay expectations. And they'll go, oh, I'm not really sure, like maybe 85 or 90,000. And I go, that's great. It doesn't actually matter what your answer is here. You won't have done yourself a disservice at all. It's just so that I know if that where to offer you a role, where to pitch the information, because if we're above or below that, I want to make sure we're on the same page. And so just reassuring them, because it really doesn't change what we'll be offering someone, because we're offering it based on their expertise, not based on, and their experience, not based on how well they were able to negotiate, because the last thing I want is for my team to be chatting about who negotiated better. And so that just allows, when you're doing that slide, if you go back to the YouTube video that Ben was showing before, around one of those slides is around the reward structure that has 6 levels. And so it means you can highlight into the level at which they were expecting and say, we can absolutely achieve that. This is how we achieve that.
It's a really great point because clinic owners are scared to ask that question about what, essentially, what do you want to earn?
Yeah.
Because what if they say a big number? And part of that is helping educate the team member or prospective team member on what it would take for that number to be a reality. The point is, there's never a no, it's how can we? Well, that would look like doing X amount of impact hours or billable hours or, revenue per week or clients per week. We find the right language and framing so that they go, okay, well, at the moment, maybe I'm seeing just a little bit less than that. So that's really achievable. So yeah, really great point around being able to ask those questions at the front end of a team member's journey is actually, I think it gives you a solid, foundation for future conversations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are so scared of that 150,000 or 120,000. And I think it's okay in an interview to say, thanks so much. That's probably a little bit above where we were expecting. We're sort of looking more in this range, but let me go and have a look at it and come back to you. It just gives you that time to think, and you might not be changing it. But then you may come back on that Zoom call and say, hey, look, we've had a look at it and this is the highest, that this is the range. And I understand that might not be within what your goals are. And they can go, yeah, no. Or they can go, actually, yeah, I was just hoping for the best.
It's great to ask those questions, explore the uncomfortable things at the very beginning. Well, to sort of draw a close and round out this conversation, we then get to enrollment, where they become a team member. This is the personalized welcome that they get. This document is certainly part of that transition between selling them the career, not the year. And then we get into the personalized prompt. What have you found useful in that time between saying welcome You are the successful candidate. We're so thrilled to welcome you to the team. And
Yes.
day one, what have you found useful in that? Sort of, it could be a couple of days, could be a couple of weeks, could be a couple of months. So, what have
Could
you found
be.
useful?
We start our 0 to 100 with them, which is our onboarding document of those first 100 days. So that means that we're reaching out, we're trying to get documents uploaded and getting anything we need. So there's that point of contact. But we also, in the week before they start, so if that means there's only been a week, it's straight away. If it's been 3 months, we might do it in the middle. But we send them a welcome gift, something to say, thanks so much. We're so excited to have you coming on board, which often gets really rave reviews as well, because people often get flowers on exit, as you say at CM, but we want to get them on entry. Um, and it depends on, I think individually, if it's longer than 4 weeks, then we need to be reaching out a little bit more. But within those 4 weeks, just having that point of contact with Louise, our operations manager, who's getting those documents, and then the flowers, and um, also me just saying to them, like, I can't wait to get the signed contract back because then I get to announce it to the team on Slack. Let me know, and just letting them know that these things are happening, that the team's finding out about them. Yeah,
That's great. Creating that clarity and certainty because it
yeah,
is so uncertain at times. Like I'm leaving this other job potentially, or if they're a new graduate, definitely a lot of
mm,
uncertainty. You're just mapping out here's what's going to happen specifically,
yeah,
in an email. So it's written, they can reference back at it and making yourself available through phone call or Zoom
yes.
to be able to talk through it. Yeah, really cool. I love the 0 to 100, their first 100 days onboarding starts as soon as possible. We want to make them feel like they're part of the team as soon as possible rather than waiting a month or
Absolutely.
3 months to feel like they're part of the team. So I
If we
love
have
that.
a culture day in the middle there, we'll invite them to that too.
Oh, great.
So
So
yeah,
a
they're welcome
team, like a
to come.
team
A
day,
team
like an
day.
in-service half day, full
Yeah.
day where you're working on something, you'll extend the invitation even
Yes.
before official day one.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm, great. I like that.
Mm.
Well, there's some really great ways here for people to level up their recruitment. In having a couple of conversations recently with clinic owners, I've had the blinding flash of the obvious. And that is these folks that have had challenges with their culture, with their existing
Yeah.
team. We've all experienced it
Yes.
and will continue to experience it. How many of them can look back on their recruitment process for that team member and
Yes.
go, there were probably some flags or some things that I
Mm.
could have done differently that might have led to me, screening this person out and giving it to someone else or taking a little bit longer. And so much of culture, like it just starts at this part of the team member's journey is having a rigorous process for screening the right candidates, which
Mm.
sounds like a luxury for folks that are just like, I don't even have applicants. So, where
Yes.
do I start? And there's a number of ideas here in this conversation.
Mm.
The idea being, how do you build an ecosystem, if I was talking correctly, I believe, my English,
I'm not the one to pick you up on it.
an ecosystem. My English teacher made me read The Australian, the newspaper, for like
Yeah.
an entire term to try and improve my English. She said it improved my English, but I don't think it did. Anyway, that's a sidebar. So it's about building an ecosystem for you in 12 months or 24 months or 36 months when you need to make that hire and not just putting the job ad up and hoping you've out
Mm.
wordsmithed someone to get the right candidate. So I think that's perhaps the key message that
Mm.
I have for those listening or watching. And what is your key message or
Yeah.
key insight, Hannah, for those that want to do their recruitment better, want to grow their clinic by adding more ideal team members?
Mm. I think on the other end of that, if I think it's a repetition of being present. So even if you haven't built that ecosystem yet, just getting those ads on every platform that you can. Don't worry about how many people are going to see it because they're generally not going to see the ad on repeat. They're going to see it once or twice in those spaces. And so just that repetition and flogging it essentially.
It's a great point
Yeah.
because we didn't talk about that earlier. So many people will say, "Oh, I don't want, I don't want to seem like I'm overbearing or I'm
Mm.
annoying people." It's like you got a pretty big problem to solve.
Yeah.
That is recruitment, and a lot of people don't even know that you've got a job offering available. So
Yes.
that is great. A great place to wrap up our conversation about recruitment. You can head along to clinicmastery.com. We've been making a few changes to the pages where we upload these podcast recordings with show notes and timestamps and transcripts and assets as well that you can download that relate to it. So, just to make it a more comprehensive experience as a listener of the podcast, if you haven't already, we would also love a review on whatever platform you use. I think 70% of people use the Apple podcast player. So jump on there and give us a review. We'd so appreciate it. Hannah, until next week, thank you so
Thanks.
much.
I look forward to next week's outfit.
Yes, I don't know where you go from a suit and a bow tie. I haven't worn this in about 2 years because I found in my pocket, as you often do, like in a suit jacket, is when we went to the 2022 Telstra Business Awards. We have a team photo here.
Yeah.
So that's how long it's been since I've worn a suit. All right, we'll put an
All
end
right.
to this episode and we'll see you on another episode very soon. Bye bye.
Perfect. Thanks. Bye.